Hi, welcome to the next episode of iTech Insights. And this one, we're going to talk about building amazing teams. Now, we all want to have amazing teams, but why don't we have them? Or how do we get to them? What does it take? And so we're going to share some thoughts on that in this next episode, so stay tuned. I'd like to invite my guest, my man, Anderson Dingo. Welcome back.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Uriah. Good to see you. Good to be here today. Hi, my name is Anderson Dinka. I've spent 20 years in IT, and it's so wonderful to be here to share my thoughts, my experiences with you. Hopefully, younger people in the careers in IT who can take some of this and be empowered to continue to thrive and grow in their careers. So, thank you again for having me.
Yeah, I'm totally excited to have you again for these. And we have an exciting topic about building great teams. And I know you built a team, multiple teams before.
Yeah,
I've been building my team out, and we've
yeah,
been part of different teams, amazing teams as well.
yeah,
So I mean, there's lots to talk about here. But first, let's kind of get into this a bit. When we're talking about building teams. Um, why don't we see more of these? And there's challenges that we all face with building teams. It could be finding the right talent. You may have a high turnover, especially wherever you may be at. Um, you may have difficult personalities. We're all different, and so different personalities can clash with one another.
yeah,
Having a good leader is like core to having a build. That's like the foundational block of building great teams. If you don't have a good leader, you're not going to have a good team. And then we were talking about this earlier. With the COVID and everything, things are remote. I have a remote team, whereas before we used to be sitting in there, and our team might be closely located within the same building, but now we're all dispersed now.
absolutely. Absolutely. These are all really, really good points. And I remember 20 something years ago when I started my career in IT, my first day of work, I had to show up there in person and receive my laptop. And when I think about where the world is today, half the time you don't even know whether you have a local office. I've seen onboarding done 100% remote. I've seen people who never stepped into an office ever since they got hired, and they've been working at a company 1 year, 2 years into their third year. So the world has evolved. The world has changed. Technologies continue to pave the world, especially now with AI. And so, how do you build amazing teams in 2025? It's such an interesting and challenging topic at the same time because we still have our preferences around flexibility around where we want to work and when we want to work, but we're existing in this global economy where you may be living in the US and you have coworkers who are in Europe, coworkers who are in Asia Pacific. So how do you continue to collaborate across different time zones and different countries and things like that? It's a very, very complex topic, but I do believe that the fantastic teams that we're talking about are not created by default. They're not created by default. They're created by design. And so hopefully through this conversation you can pick up a tip or two that can help you go back to your teams and inject some newfound way of making it closer and closer to that place where you want to work every single day. So Uriah, a great topic again, and I'm looking forward to what we uncover through this conversation.
Yeah, it's always like exploratory, and there's been tons of research out there, and I've read some books, studied a little bit on it, um, and there's always these reoccurring things that come up with that great teams have in common. And actually, I made this diagram that I'll share, um, and there's three things that come up with with building great teams, and it's purpose, safety, and trust. And then in
Mm,
2012, Google actually did a uh, a study, and they wanted to know in within their teams, what made teams effective at within Google. And so they studied a whole bunch of different attributes as well, um, like team dynamics, leadership styles, and what they came out of that revealed that the psychological safety was the most critical factor
Wow.
that contribute to the success and effectiveness of teams.
Wow. Psychological safety, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's so interesting. Yeah.
So when
It's it,
teams feel safe within their team, then they're willing to buy into it and, like, really help for the success of the team.
Absolutely. I love that note on psychological safety because I continue to see the number of companies who lay off their top performers today. And it's so crazy how that erodes all the psychological safety that the remaining employees would have if a company can just lay off their top performers. But that's a reality that a lot of employees have to deal with today, is the mass layoffs. And actually for the last 4 years, it's been the mass layoffs that have been happening. um, in your diagram, you had respect and communication at the center of the triangle. Can you speak a little bit to why those two found themselves in the? I didn't read the research by Google.
Yeah. Um, well, I, I put that in the middle there because y- in order to facilitate these different areas like purpose and trust and safety, there needs to be channels of communication, open channels of communication between the team members. And also there needs to be respect for the team members as well. I just think if there wasn't respect for the team members, your team would fall apart. No one
Yeah,
would want to help each other. They'd all be going on the different directions. So it seemed like respect and communication pulled these three together, like kind of like the glue of these three.
totally,
And so
totally.
that's why that was there.
Yeah, totally. And I love the distinction between the two because you've certainly seen places where communication was a big challenge. Either you're not hearing from your boss, you're not hearing from your peers, and when the communication is not existing, it's really easy to start hearing things like, "I was operating in a silo," or "I don't know what that other team is working on," or "I don't know what this person is working on." The respect one is a really interesting one because being in IT, we don't think much about the importance of respecting each other, but you've certainly been in a situation where you've asked somebody to deliver something to you at a certain time and they didn't do it for whatever reason. They felt like doing it their own way because they've been used to doing it that way. And that just erodes respect in an organization. Or you've been in a situation before where there's a lot of competition. People are winding up each
Mm,
other.
yeah.
They're not doing things collaboratively. So I love that those two traits are in the center. And to be honest with you, it feels like the two actually feed, or they pull the three together, because it's very hard to see communication without respect, and it's very hard to see respect without communication. You kind of have to have
Right.
those two things in order to have an amazing team.
Hmm. Yeah, and the purpose really drives unity of the teams as well. And that's
Mhm.
mainly up to the leaders to identify, well, what's the purpose of this team? Why does it exist? What is our goal? Where are we now and where do we want to get to? And there's this book I read about, it was called Culture Code. And they had different examples, and one of the examples was about the San Antonio Spurs, the NBA basketball team.
Oh, yeah.
And Coach Popovich he's a coach of the team. He's been the coach for over 20 years. And it was kind of cool, like an inside story on how he coaches the team. And he really um, pulls the team together by their one common goal, and especially any NBA team though, is to win an NBA championship. But he makes them also feel that there's a belonging to the team. Like each person on the team is important, and then trusting
Absolutely.
the team members too, because each of them were unique. And one of the things was unique about his team is that he had a lot of international players,
Hmm.
where when the NBA at the time, 10, 15 years ago, it was a lot, there wasn't that many international players. So
Interesting.
he had these different like Ginobili and Tony Parker, and so they were from different parts, and they played differently too. Basketball just slightly different, but yet he used each of their individualities as strengths to support the team,
Yeah,
and he trusted what they were doing in their abilities to make the team work better together for that same common
absolutely.
goal, that same common purpose that they had.
Yeah,
So that was a really good story to hear about that team and how
yeah.
they pulled together, winning like I think they won 3 or 4 championships in like 8 years or something like that. They built themselves a
Wow.
dynasty of winning
Wow.
championships.
You can pick up a lot of you can pick up a lot of leadership or a lot of team analogies from sports, from the sports world. The New England Patriots, when they won, how for as long as they won, or the Red Sox were not winners for as long as they were until they broke the curse of the Bambino in 2014, 2004, and how that whole thing came about. um, Football, whether it's NBA, basketball, or it's soccer, there's a lot of what you described was diversity, being able to bring in kind of hive mind group think. This person is a good striker. This person is a good defense. This person is good. But bringing all those individual skills, those diverse skills into one team. And then the second thing that you talk about was a sense of belonging. Like I belong here. I want to feel included. A
Hmm.
lot of it's a hard thing to do nowadays when we're working remotely. There's so much isolation that's going on. So to be cognizant of that as a leader and to make sure that everyone has a say in your team creates that sense of belonging, which builds onto the team's well-being. So I love those 2 points, and it's really really important to think. These are things we don't think about usually when you're searching for a good candidate. You're usually looking for the person who's good on paper, right? But
Right.
when you go beyond the paper, you want the person who actually connects with the team, who connects with the culture, and who the culture actually connects to, because it goes both ways. It takes two to tango. Half the time, we think that person is just going to be a culture fit. I remember we had to throw out that term culture fit years ago and replace it with a culture addition, because it's
Hmm.
not about just like fitting in. Like it's, it's I think the best teams operate well when everyone doesn't feel like they're just fitting in. They feel like they have something extra to contribute to the team. So, yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that yeah, using individual or our uniqueness and our individual skill set to complement each other, not
absolutely.
not as a competition, but to complement the team to help make the team better. And so that's and each of us are different. We all bring something different to the table.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then you think about trust too. Trust to allow that person the latitude to do their job. And sometimes it may not be exactly how you would have done it, but you're trusting that person. Like, okay, they said they're going to get that thing done, and so let them do it. And they feel empowered. That like, okay, my team trusts me to do this for the team. I'm not going to let the team down. Whereas if
Right.
they said, oh, they don't trust me, how are they? They're not going to do a good job if they don't feel that the other their team has if they have their trust or not. So that's another
Yeah.
key one to allow people to have that latitude.
Trust is an interesting one because it's somewhat of a two-way street. I trust you to hire me, to give me a paycheck, to do all of those things for me, and then you trust me to do my job and show up on time, and all of those two things. It's a two-way street, and the moment one of us starts to not fulfill our end of the bargain, then that trust starts becoming broken. Um, so how do you maintain that type of trust? Because the trust builds psychological safety. If this person said, I'm going to submit my report on Friday at this time, or they better submit it on Friday at this time. But it's a balancing act because with trust comes latitude as well. You know, that person might have been sick and their dog may need to go to the vet or something. And just having that understanding that yes, while they need to deliver their job at a certain time, they're also human. Something could have happened. You know, not being on top of them every 2 seconds, thinking worst case scenario, like they're trying to be malicious, but to give them the benefit of the doubt, sometimes it goes a long way. So trust is a tricky one. It's a kind of a two-way street, but it's so easy to throw the trust out the window and not treat the person like a human. You know, we're human. We're not robots and machines. So,
Right. Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some of the things you've noticed on actually building good teams? Like, what have you noticed that seem to work, or things that don't work?
Yeah, I think all of those things that we talk about, Uriah, I've built so many teams from scratch. Um, and one of the things that comes to mind for me is what you had there at the top of the triangle, which was purpose. Um, Having a team all aligned to a certain purpose, everyone just is humming and beating to the same drum. And, you know, someone is not off doing something completely different than what the team is supposed to be working on. It's so amazing. We talk about alignment is the assignment in coaching, but how well can people align to can see their work being represented up at the leadership level and see the leadership vision of the company being represented by them? That alignment is so huge. And most of the time you find alignment when your team understands what the mission, the vision, what the purpose of the team is, and maybe somewhat what their values are. And if I can see my values in this team, then I get to alignment. So how do you create alignment in an organization that organizations focus on the purpose? I've found that purpose driven teams exceed by far um, 2x, 3x times what their peers can do if it's not if they're non-purpose driven teams. People want to know that they're part of something big, right? So give them that purpose, give them that why. Simon Sinek talks about starting with your why. There's so many different business leaders out there who talk about starting with your why. I'm pretty sure someone on your team is going to ask you the question, but boss, why are we doing this thing? Why do we even exist? You know? So to me, having a purpose, those are the things that are great. The trust and the safety is amazing. If you can balance them all, then you can get to where Google's talking about, which is your highest performing teams. Having alignment is so huge when you talk about getting teams to be working towards one ultimate goal. Because otherwise, what happens in a state of misalignment is that this one person might do something that goes in the opposite direction than what that other person is working on. And then we've got conflict. So, um, finding good people, having empathy, great communication, all of those things do matter. But one thing that I've come to discover is that once you, as a leader, understand the concept of alignment, you're a connector between your people and the higher levels of the company. So it's really important for you to be that person, that aligner for the team.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing I've noticed, and I read this book um, called All In, and it's a leadership book on building great teams, and it was talking about
Nice.
just as you want your employees to invest in that purpose that you have for the team, they also have to feel that they're being invested in too, that you're all in
Mm,
for them. You know,
yeah.
you want to see them succeed in their career. So growing your team individually, as team members, like asking them like, "Hey, like what is it that drives you? Where is it that you want to take your career, or what's success look like to you?" And then understanding that and helping them achieve that. They're like, "Well, like the company, my manager, my leader is really invested in me. I also want to be invested in this company." And purpose or its goal that we're trying to reach to. So growing the individuals internally um, helps build that cohesiveness of alignment with purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Growth is such a powerful thing, but it's so amazing. I've been in situations before where I've managed people who are like, I'm very good where I'm at. I don't want to become a manager. I don't just leave me where I'm at. And that's not the type of growth that we're talking about. Everybody has something, some area that they could be working on, that they could be getting better at, even though I want to stay in the same title. I might be able to collaborate better across the organization. I might be able to set my goals and achieve them better. So there's always growth that needs to happen. And as a manager, it's important to have those conversations with your people. It's so important. I've had people come to me after 10 years of being in the company and say, hey, nobody ever asked me what I want to be when I grow up. I'm like, are you kidding me? So just have that growth conversation. If it's not week, if it's not even, you don't have to have it every single week. Once a month, once a quarter, at the end of the year, we just finished an entire year cycle. Ask your people, what do you want to do this year? What professional development do you want to get into? What conference do you want to go to? How do you want to showcase your skills and what kind of networks do you want to build for yourself? That's all part of growth and growth mindset. I read this book. Carol Dweck has an amazing book about growth mindset. Um, and it's so powerful because these are skills that you can take from work and bring to your own personal life as well when you deal with difficult circumstances. Is it the buck stops here, or is it an opportunity for you to do better, do differently the next time? I find that growth mindset, once you have it within the team, even the days where it's the hardest days, the team fails, we did not hit that goal on time, there's always a lesson to be learned. And usually those are the situations where the team gets to grow and become more cohesive. So I love that you talk about growth. I think that's an amazing trait for a team to have.
Hmm. Yeah, and even when we're looking at for new team members, we talked a little bit about this, but adding new members and finding the right talent, and it may not be just like off their resume, like their skill sets. Yeah, that they need to have some basic level of skill sets, but it's also their attitude as well. When I'm interviewing people, I'm looking at their attitude. Like, okay, would this person be a a good contribution to the team?
Yeah.
How would the dynamics of this person uh, bring to the team? And so I'm always looking for that as well, not just their technical skills, because people can be, they can have a lot of skills, but if they're not they're not going to work well with the team. It's going to cause more disruption than
Oh yeah.
help.
Oh yeah. I think there's the two A words which I'm always looking for. Their attitude and their altitude is their tenacity, the ability to be a go getter. You know, your attitude is so important, but like that go getter mentality, that there's nothing that's every challenge. Just I'm happy to jump in. I want to take that opportunity. I want to go and do that thing. um, I love that people who are tenacious,
Mm.
there's nothing stopping them. And if you have that as a trait, you can cultivate it too. You can be you can decide today, hey, you know what, I don't want any opportunity that I can't go into. I want to be able to go in there. Leaders love to see somebody who is not scared of challenges. So your attitude is great. Your tenacity is even more powerful. And I'll add a third A to that. Uriah, authenticity is so huge. You
Yeah.
talk about the NBA and how this coach was able to bring in all stars from different parts of the world and different parts of the country and things like that. Every coach wants that person who's coming in as a new person on the team to bring in their uniqueness, their authenticity, because otherwise then they're just like oh, just one of the others, and you don't want a one of the others because then that goes against the whole concept of diversity. So bringing your authenticity, whether it's how you speak or how you solve problems, that uniqueness that you've got is so powerful as an addition to the team.
Right. Yeah.
Man, I didn't even know I had a AAA.
Yeah. You just built it out right now on the fly.
Yeah, your attitude, your altitude, and your authenticity. These are three really powerful things for you to bring to build out your team.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Yeah. So, it is a challenge. We were talking about, especially for like remote teams too, like how do we get, you know, teams together and on the same page? You know, for our team, we try to meet all at one time, even though we're in different time zones. We do try to meet like a couple of times a week, and
Yeah.
um, and sometimes we do have to talk business, business talk. But sometimes it's like I'll bring up like a card and be like, hey, what's your favorite movie, your favorite TV show, and we'll go around. We'll just talk about that, and we'll just spend a little time like getting to know each other in that way, and that builds that cohesiveness um, together. Another thing is too, it's not always possible, but just having actual meetups where like we call them
Hmm.
offsites, where you have like a meeting and we actually get together and meet. And yeah, we talk about roadmap planning and stuff like that for the year, but we also try to incorporate just kind of some kind of social event as well.
Yeah.
Like when we all met here, we went on a boat tour, a sunset boat tour. So that was really nice because we were along the coast and you
Oh,
see,
nice.
the off the off the ocean, the sunset and everything, and so that was just really nice
Wow.
just to hang out and do that. And I thought that was a really good team building event that just getting together physically and doesn't have to be talking about work, but just getting to know each other helps.
Absolutely. And I'll add to that. I think some of the best one-on-ones that I've had with my team, um, or with my bosses, have never really been about work. It's been about you as a person. Um, Getting to know you as a person makes me be able to work better with you. Being able to carve out that time, we did things like icebreakers. Like, if you're a pizza, what topping would you be? Things like, I mean, you can make it as cheesy as you want, but like those icebreakers allow people to get out. Some people are naturally introverted, and so being on video, they get shy, they get quiet. But being able to throw an icebreaker out there, all of a sudden we had people talking for the first time in meetings, and I was like, wow, that person has something to say, and it carried on through the meeting. It didn't just stop at the icebreaker. So don't make it cheesy. Do make them authentic. Like, I definitely want to get to know more about you. If there are things that, as you're listening to your people, you pick up, oh, this person loves to travel, make a note of it. Put a mental note, put it in your notepad somewhere. And that when you're going on vacation, maybe that's the person you tell, hey, I'm going on vacation. Do you have recommendations in this place? You'd be amazed how people
Mm.
actually value things like that more than, hey, I just give you an extra $100 in your paycheck on things like that. Like, people want to know that they're being seen, they're being heard, they're part of something big, and your ability as a leader to hear them, and your ability as an employee, because this is not only on your leader, you as a person, check in on your boss too. Like, hey boss, how you doing? What's the last place that you went to? What's the last book that you read? Some of these questions might sound really cheesy, but it will show that you have interest to understand how they are, and interest to grow in different ways than just in your role. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah, those are all great tips on building that. And you can do that, over Zoom or whatever. You don't always have to be in person. So those are really great
Absolutely.
suggestions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate this as always, these good conversations we're having. Um, I like
Amazing.
the flow of them and how we talk. And so just, we can keep on um, helping others, you know, if even if you're not a manager or leader, you can be a contributor to a great team. And some of these things we talked
Absolutely.
about that we can all do to help. bolster our team up.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so important nowadays because I think the teams are so much more complicated today. So I'm so glad that you came up with this topic, and I hope that the viewers took at least one tip or trick. Maybe it's just my AAA. I I hope they took at least one thing out of this conversation and brought back to their teams. And if you want to reach out to Uriah, reach out to me. At any given point, we're certainly open to having these conversations with you, just to make sure that we can continue to build even more amazing teams in the future. So thanks, Uriah, for having me, and thanks everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you all. Have a good one.
Awesome.